Hello and welcome to Homer for Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Today we will be reading from lines 32 to 45 in book 13 of the Iliad, in which we discuss a cave and what it means to ride on the earth. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and let's get right into this excellent passage. There is a wide cavern in the depths of the deep sea, midway between Tenedos and rugged Imbros. There Poseidon, the shaker of earth, stayed his horses and loosed them from the chariot and cast before them ambrosial food to graze on. And about their feet he put hobbles of gold, which could not be broken or loosed, so that without stirring they might there await their lord's return. And he himself went to the army of the Achaeans. But the Trojans, like flame or tempest, were following all in one body furiously after Hector, son of Priam, with loud shouts and cries. And they thought that they would take the ships of the Achaeans and slay by them all the best men. But Poseidon, the enfolder and shaker of earth, urged on the Argives, when he had come out from the deep sea in the likeness of Calchas, in form and untiring voice. Excellent. Let's do it in the Greek. Esti de ti spousa Europateias pentes ilimnes, Massagos tenedoi ocaimru pai paloeses, en tipos estes posedauon en osichon, usasex ocheron paradam rosion baleneirar, edmenaiam pide possipedas ebale cuseias, arrectus salutus ofrem peronalthimenoien, Noste Santa Wana, Roesta Tonoi Catacaion, Troeste Flogeisue Olese Atuele, Hectori Priamide Amoton Memo Teseponto, Abrome Auiaque Alponto de Neia Secaion, Airesen Kenen de Parautoti Pantas Aristus, Alla posedauon Gaieuos en nosigaios, Argeios otuon ebateias exalas elton, Samenos calcanti demas caetere apone. Great. What an awesome passage. So first I want to mention the idea of the cave. So when we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, we found them in a cave. When we found the oldest markings of human relics, right, so the handprints, right, and like the French caves, they were caves that were brought up from what used to be a low water line, I guess. When we found the caves, I could go on. There's so many great caves out there. There's so many interesting things in caves. There's so many white things in caves, one might say. So when they lost alligators in New York City in the 1950s in the zoo, they thought that they went into the pipes and became albino. Great part of Thomas Pynchon's 1963 debut novel, V. I think it's 1963, maybe it's 1968, but Viking Press doesn't really do it that way anymore, but I digress. Caves reveal things, actually. And it's interesting that there's a spaus Eurubateias pentes ilimnes. There is a wide cave in the depths of the deep sea. And then I want to tie that into this word at the end here, these two words which are in line 43. Ale posedauon Gaieuos en nosigaios, Gaieuos en nosigaios, earth shaker or earth rider, Gaie ojos, it's not really sure what that is, en nosigaios, right? In the earth, are also earth shaker. Both of these words are extremely nebulous. They clearly harken back to an older diction, right, an older tradition, very murky meanings for something about, Poseidon, something about being under the ground. And in nosigaios, so in the earth, right, also earth shaking. These are characteristics of perfect horses. Perfect horses that can be underground like these ones are. They're given ambrosial food so they last forever. They're shackled by gold so they're insured for their goldliness. They have the golden whip too, as we discussed yesterday, and they're clad in gold, flowing manes of gold. Everything is golden about them, and they're underground, and eventually they will be revealed. But for now, before their revelation, one might say, they have a master, Poseidon, who's going to go to the surface, right? I hate to be too literal with the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Revelation, right? But Poseidon goes to the surface, and what does he appear as? He appears as the gods always appear to mortals in the Iliadic terminology, which is Demaskaye atere ponein. In the likeness and unfailing voice. Inform and untiring voice. Demaskaye atere ponein e samanos kalkanti. So going forth like Calchas in form and with untiring voice. And I think the auspices of a god coming to the surface with untiring voice seems to me to be a bit of an alibi for the fact that the words of revelation in religious texts, when Joseph Smith comes down from the hill or wherever he was when he received when Hesiod comes down from the the lightning strike and the cavern that opened up to receive all the information that's in the Hesiodic literature, the Theogony, when Homer himself or Demodocus or these these poets within the poems, when the players of the play within the Tempest of Shakespeare have to give their story, they do it untiringly. They do it with a sense of gusto, pardon the Tempest pun. There's something about that messenger-ness and the idea of an untiring voice that we must defer to the content and elucidation of high and full ideas that are encapsulated in descriptions of the holy and what is special, which we find in these texts, as we hear in Poseidon's progression to the surface of the ocean. I don't think that these people were strong-voiced, but they were untiring-voiced. So Calchas has an untiring voice. The poets also sing forever, so they have untiring voices. A prophet literally is speaking everything beforehand, and they often have to speak for a long time. They're memorizing stuff. I think this is all quite relevant. In the rabbinical tradition, you have memorization, the oral tradition of the Old Testament. I think there's something for that. And I think that one other thing that makes me remark on that for this passage are other words that don't really make sense. And I don't mean make sense in a storyline way. I mean make sense in literally just where does this word come from? We don't really know where abromoyawiyakoi come from. Awiyakoi there's several digammas in there actually. There's 2 digammas, which is the lost wa letter that was present beforehand. There's 2 of them in there, and we don't really know what the word means. Awiyakoi. I think right here it's loud shouts and cries, right? And take all the best of the Achaeans down. If that's not a summary of the whole Iliad, I don't know what is, or at least on behalf of the Trojans. But of course, Poseidon has something to say about that. I think we can meditate for this for quite some time. But I will instead leave the viewer, it's also getting quite dark here in the Northeast, very sad, time change. I leave you with a question, which is there something about your life that you feel you could speak untiringly for? And if you had to be transfigured into the body of somebody else and sent somewhere in order to speak that truth and speak untiringly about it, what would you speak about? I'm very, very curious, because I believe that is what makes both a good leader and also a good messenger of the good in all its forms. Thank you so much for listening today, and we will continue to muse over what it means to spread good messages tomorrow as we pick up with the battle. Thanks, and I will see you tomorrow for more Homer.